So, good day to all of you. Our lesson for today is all about module number 5, which is entitled Factors Affecting Climate. So, before we start, I want everybody to be reminded of the following things. First is to listen attentively and keep your focus to the lesson. Next is to write down all important information. Third one is to mute your microphone when someone is talking or speaking. And the last one is to participate in class discussion by clicking the raise hand button from your device. So, to start with, let's have a short recap of what we had last time. Last week, we talked about geothermal energy and geothermal power plant. We also tackled about the advantages and disadvantages of using geothermal power plant. So for today's lesson, the most essential learning competency is to explain how different factors of climate affect an area. And the expectations are the following. First is to differentiate climate from weather and to describe the factors that affect climate. So in this lesson, let's start with a question. What makes climate and weather different from one another? Do you have any idea about this? What do you think? Is climate and weather the same or different? So to see your knowledge about this, let us have some self-check. When we say weather, it is the day-to-day condition of the atmosphere. And every day we do have different weather conditions. Weather can vary in different time and in different place just like this. In Bacoor, Cavite, the temperature is 32 degrees Celsius, while in Quezon City, the temperature is just 30 degrees Celsius. So what did you notice? Yes, they are both located in the Philippines, but they have different amount of temperature. Another example is in Bacolod, having temperature of 31 degrees Celsius, while in Baguio, the temperature is just 19 degrees Celsius. So as you can see here in the pictures, you will observe that all these places are located in the same country, which is the Philippines. But even if they are in the same country, they can still have different amount of temperature. How about in other countries, like in Paris? The temperature there is just 5 degrees Celsius, while in New York, temperature goes to 8 degrees, and in Moscow, 16 degrees Celsius of temperature will be observed. So as you notice here in the following pictures, different places in the Philippines can have different weather during night and day. You will observe also that they have different amount of temperature even if they are located in the same country. So this real-time data of weather forecast tell us that within our country, temperature and weather may be different from time to time and from place to place, while all around the globe, much more difference in the temperature and climate will be noticed. Aside from weather, or aside from that, weather can affect our day-to-day activities. Like for example, if you have some plan in going to the mall, you have to consider the time and the place, but most of all, you should check the weather first for that particular day. Because if it is rainy day or sunny day, you should prepare. So meaning to say weather will be different every day. For example, in the first day of the week, it could be sunny day where the sun is shining so bright. The next day could be cloudy day or the other day could be windy. The other day could be rainy day. So it means that weather may be different every day. It depends upon the condition of the atmosphere from that specific day. But how about climate? Is climate similar with weather? The answer is no. Climate is defined as the overall condition of the atmosphere in a long period of time. When I say a long period of time, it takes months to change it. Like in the Philippines, climate is divided into two seasons. We have rainy season from June to November and dry season from December to May according to Pag-asa. And due to the difference in climate all around the world, some fruits and vegetables cannot grow on hot places or cannot grow on cold climate. So, climate really varies from place to place and from time to time, and this difference in climate can affect our lives, our day-to-day activities, even the food we eat. So in the Philippines, we only have two climate patterns, which are the rainy and dry season. But in different countries all around the world, they may have different climates. Like, for example, some parts of the planet experience tropical wet climate wherein the climate are hot and rainy every day. Other parts of the world have polar climate wherein the climate is cold and the place is covered with snow. Most probably you may hear the words winter, spring, summer, and fall as the climate of other countries. Yes, in other countries there are winter or there could be spring, but in our country there's none. So the main question is why? Why is it climate differs from different countries? Why is it in our country we have rainy and dry season only, but in other part of the world there they could have four seasons? So why does climate varies all around the globe? So the answer to these questions lies on the factors that affect climate. So meaning to say there are certain factors that could influence the climate of a certain area. Actually, there are five factors. One of these is the latitude. Next is the altitude. Third one is the topography. Another one is the bodies of water. And the last one is the ocean current. So for today, we are going to discuss the five factors that affect climate, and that is the highlight of the lesson that we are going to have this morning. So I'm going to elaborate more regarding the factors that affect climate. First in line is the latitude. Latitude affects the climate of a certain area. But what is latitude? We already discussed in our past module that latitude is the horizontal line that you can see on the map or on the globe like this. This is an imaginary line on the globe that will serve as the guide in locating some place or some area. So how does the latitude affects the climate of a certain place? To answer this question, take a look at this. Let's say this circle represents the Earth, and our planet is divided into two hemispheres, which is the northern hemisphere and the southern hemisphere. At the top, you can see the North Pole, and below you can see the South Pole. Take note that our planet is tilted into some degree, and that degree is 23.5 degrees. And that tilt is also the reason why different places around the world receive varying amount of sunlight every day. These are the rays of the sun, and as you notice, arrows represent the rays of the sun. There are longer arrows and there are shorter ones. So the difference in the length of arrow indicates that there are also different amount of sunlight received by several places around the globe. So what is the connection of the rays of the sun to the latitude? As we all know, latitude is just an imaginary line. Latitude is the horizontal line that you can see on the world map or any map or on the globe. And also, equator lies at the center of our globe. So it means that areas or places that are near the equator can receive intensive amount of sunlight or high amount of sunlight, making these places near the equator warm and hot. On the other way around, areas that are not vertically hit by the sun's rays will be having cold climate because they will be receiving less amount of sunlight due to the tilt of the earth. So it only means that as the latitude goes nearer the equator, the air temperature increases, making the climate hot. And as the latitude goes farther away from the equator, coming to the north or south pole, the temperature now will decrease, making the climate here cold. Once again, if the place or country is located near the equator, the climate there is hot or warm simply because They are receiving so much amount of sunlight or direct amount of sunlight, and the temperature there is increasing. If the area or country is located far away from the equator, the climate there is cold because they receive less amount of sunlight due to the tilt of the earth. Just like this, our country is located near the equator. That is the reason why our country is experiencing hot climate, most especially in summertime. Africa is also one of the countries that is located near the equator, so they experience hot climate also. So both Philippines and Africa are located near the equator. That is the reason why they have hot climate, because they receive intensive or high amount of sunlight every day, because they directly hit or strike by the sun's rays. The second factor is the altitude, rather. So altitude is defined as the height of a place, that is the distance in a vertical position. Just like this person, we can say that he is on a higher altitude because, by just looking at the mountain where he is standing. So how does the altitude or height of a place affects the climate? Look at this table. You can see here different places in the Philippines like Bacolod, Baguio, Lawag, Manila, Tagaytay, and Zamboanga. So their elevation, or simply the height of the place, is being noticed here, and the corresponding amount of temperature. Take note that the height is measured in meters and the temperature is measured in degrees Celsius. So 27.5 and so on and so forth is the annual temperature of different places here. So when we say annual, the average temperature of that particular place within the year. So what did you notice? As you observe, places in higher elevation have lower temperature, like Baguio. 1,400 meters from the ground is the height of the Baguio, and its temperature is just 16 degrees Celsius yearly, while Manila and Bacolod are both positioned 10 meters from the ground. That is why their average temperature is around 27 degrees Celsius. So what can we conclude from this scenario? It only means that altitude can also influence the climate of a certain place. The higher you are, the colder it gets. Meaning to say, if you go higher and higher, the temperature will also decrease, making the climate cold. That is why in Baguio, the climate there is cold because it is positioned at a higher altitude. While Manila, Bacolod, they experience hot climate or high amount of temperature because they are located in lower altitude. So the concept is the higher, the colder. So based on the table presented earlier, climate really affects by the altitude of a certain place. According to what we have seen, we can say that the higher the altitude of a place, the colder it gets. In other words, the altitude of a place influences the air temperature because the higher, the colder. One best example is the Mount Kilimanjaro located in Africa. Africa is known to be a warm or hot country since it is positioned near the equator. Let us see the world map again. So here in this map, you can see that Africa is located near the equator. A while ago, I have told you that latitude is one of the factors that affect the climate of the certain place. So, the nearer you are to the equator, the hotter it will get. So, those countries like Africa will experience hot climate because they are located along the equator or near the equator, meaning they will be receiving high amount of sun's rays. So, That is the reason why Africa is a hot climate. But there is one mountain in Africa which is called Mount Kilimanjaro that is seen to be covered by snow. Look at this. So this Mount Kilimanjaro is located in a hot country, but as you can see, it is covered with snow. So in this case, the factor that affects the climate in this mountain is not the latitude of Africa, but instead, it is the altitude of Mount Kilimanjaro. Because mountain, as we all know, is a higher area. And just to tell you that Mount Kilimanjaro that is located in Africa or found near the equator, it stands about 5,895 meters above the sea level or from the ground. So the peak of this mountain is covered by ice. So that is the reason why this mountain has cold climate because of its altitude. Imagine 5,895 meters above the sea level. So the altitude is so high, making the climate cold or making this mountain covered with snow. So the red line here represent the equator. And based on what we have tackled a while ago, places or countries near the equator receive most of the sun's rays. So if you are living near the equator, you will also experience hot or warm climate like the Philippines, Indonesia, Malaysia, Colombia, Africa, and many more. But in Africa, even if it is located near the equator, if you are in a higher altitude like the Mount Kilimanjaro, you can still experience cold climate. So depends upon the latitude, but it also depends on the height or altitude. Okay? It means that latitude is not only the factor that can determine the climate of a certain place, because altitude can also influence the climate on that particular area. Okay? Based on what we have discussed, the higher the area is, the colder it gets. So the question number one here, why do mountain climbers wear thick clothes or jackets when they go up a mountain? The answer is because the temperature decreases as the altitude increases. That is the effect of the altitude to the climate of a certain place. And that is also the reason why some places in our country like Baguio and Tagaytay have colder air even if our country is located near the equator. So wearing thick clothes or jackets in going up a mountain, obviously the reason is because of the height of the place or the altitude or the elevation of the particular place. So once again, the air temperature decreases as the altitude increases. Actually, for every 1,000 meters that you are going higher, there is a drop of 6.5 degrees Celsius. So meaning to say at higher elevations or at higher places, there could be less air or the air molecules are farther apart, thus making the air less dense. So lighter air cannot absorb much heat, making the air temperature lower. So ultimately, the decrease in air temperature is due to the decrease in air pressure. How about the next factor? Let's move on to the third one that affects the climate, and that is what we call topography. Topography refers to the surface forms and features of a land. Mountain is one of the typographical features of an area, and mountain can greatly affect the climate of a specific place. To know more about that, take a look at the different side of the mountain. So there are two sides of the mountain, the windward and the leeward side. What is the function of these sides? Windward side is the side of the mountain facing the sea. As the term implies, it is where the wind blows. But because of the mountain, it blocks the path of the wind, that is why the wind moves upward. As the wind moves upward, water vapor condenses, thereby forming clouds. So when the clouds are too heavy, it will fall to the ground as rain. And after the precipitation, air now will move downward on the leeward side of the mountain, and the air will start to absorb heat from the surrounding, making the area warm and dry. That is the reason why leeward side is a dry place or hot area. The dry area or region on the leeward side is what we call the rain shadow. And let's proceed to the fourth one. Another factor that greatly influences the climate is the bodies of water, like the seas, large lakes, and ocean. How does it affect the climate? Please listen carefully. Soil absorbs heat faster than water. Additionally, soil also releases heat faster compared to water. Soil here represents the land, and the water refers to any bodies of water like seas, large lakes, or even ocean. It means that surrounding water can affect the climate of a place. But how? Because places that are located near the bodies of water will have a moderate climate because the surrounding water can regulate the temperature. I have said earlier that soil absorbs and releases heat faster than water, which in turn means that bodies of water absorbs and releases heat slower than the land. And due to the slow absorption and release of heat by the water, bodies of water can regulate or control the temperature of the surrounding land. That is why climate is just moderate. When I say moderate, neither hot or cold, just an average amount of temperature, not too hot or not too cold. On the other hand, places or countries that are far from bodies of water or not surrounded by sea, lakes, or ocean may have an extreme climate. When I say extreme, it could be too hot or too cold. Why? Because there are no bodies of water that can control or regulate the temperature. So in this part, climate could be moderate or extreme. I will give you an example. Look at this map of British Isle and Moscow. What did you observe? The two places here lie on the same latitude. I already discussed that latitude earlier as the first factor that can influence the climate. If they lie on the same latitude, it means that they receive the same amount of sunlight. And if they receive the same intensity of solar energy, it means that they should have the same climate. But, however, based on the data gathered, British Isles have moderate climate while Moscow have extreme climate. So why? Looking at this map, you will know the reason why. Simply because British Isle is located near the ocean, and as we all know, water can regulate the temperature due to its low absorption and release of heat. Moscow have extreme climate because it is positioned far from the bodies of water. If there's no water, there's no one that can control the temperature, so the climate will be extreme. So it could be too hot or too cold. And the last factor that influences climate is the ocean current. Ocean current plays a vital role in the climate of a certain place. In what way? Take note that the continuous and predictable movement of ocean is caused by gravity, wind, and density of the water. And ocean water can move into two directions, either horizontally or vertically. So warm currents coming from the equator move toward the poles of the planet which carry warm water. On the other way around, cold currents coming from the poles move towards the equator which carry cold water. So the horizontal movement of the ocean is called the current. That is why it is called ocean current. To understand more why ocean current affects the climate, here is a figure that you have to see. You can see here several loops or gyres of currents around the planet. In the northern part of the world, you can see that the movement of the ocean current is in the clockwise direction. However, in the southern part, the ocean current flows on the counterclockwise direction. So the movement of ocean in clockwise and in counterclockwise direction is caused by the so-called Coriolis effect. Ocean current from the poles carry cold water, and the air temperature above cold water is low, and when this current flows to coastal area, the area becomes cold also. On the other hand, ocean current coming from the equator carry warm water. The air temperature above warm water is high, and when this current moves towards the landmass, the air temperature of that area becomes high, resulting in a warm or hot temperature. So, to make this simple on how does the ocean currents affect the climate of a specific place, take note of this. Ocean currents which carry cold water will make the climate cold, and ocean currents which carry warm water will make the climate warm. So I hope it is clear to you how the five factors affect the climate of a certain place. So that's conclude our lesson for today, and I hope you learned so many things that you can apply on your everyday living. You can visit the links and references that I use if you watch or if you want to watch again the video that we have watched earlier. For your quiz 5, visit our FB group or Google Classroom for the instruction. And that's all. And thank you for your time to listen today. For your assignment, please accomplish your Module 5 and upload a clear and bright photos of your answers in the Google Classroom on or before Friday this week.